class in the Maimer, rather, the whole point in the Maimer is that the difference between men and women, here, there's a new Maimer we're doing, is this one. Difference between men and women, you can also take this, is that women, their neshama comes from the sphere of Malchus, and men come from Zoh. And because Malchus is closer to this world than Zoh, that's why women naturally have more of an awareness and a consciousness of godliness, how it's in this world, because they're connected to that level of godliness, which is more connected to this world. So the question that may be asked is that you probably have come across in sichas, in classes, or maybe in Maimorim, where you learned about perhaps the opposite, that this spiritual source of a woman's neshama is higher than the spiritual source of a man's neshama. And that's why it says that women are stronger in Amunah, and in so many different areas where women are superior to men. So this little paper here, well, explain, this is the answer. We're going to take a look at it. So you have here the 10 spheros. Starts with Chokhmah, goes down to Malchus. Okay, so look at Malchus where it says that's feminine. That's connected to women. And there's an arrow that goes from there down to neshamas of women. Then a little bit higher up, you have where it says Zoh. So you see Zoh are the 6 meters, Chesed, Gevurah, Tiferes. That's the Chod Yesod Malchus. Are you following me? Right? This is Zoh. From here till here, these 6. And Zoh is the source of the neshama of men. But then there's another thing on this chart, which is showing you that Malchus, the neshama of women, which is from Malchus, where is the source of Malchus? So there's another line going from Malchus all the way up, 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 all the way on top of Kesed. And then there's another line coming from Yesod, which is the 6th of the masculine midos, that goes all the way up, but doesn't go up to Kesed. In other words, the source of an neshama of a woman is from Malchus, and men is from Zoh. But the source of Malchus comes from a higher source than the source of Zoh. So both things are true. In other words, the 6 midos, which are Zoh, their source is from a lower place in Kesed, not indicated here. But the source of the Malchus is from Kesed. On the bottom of the page, that's the pasuk that's always brought, Eishes Chayil, a woman of valor is the crown of her husband. In Kabbalah, Zoh is the husband and Malchus is the wife. The Zoh is masculine and Malchus is feminine. What does it mean the woman of valor is the crown of her husband? That her source, the neshama Malchus, which is also the source of women, the source of Malchus is in the crown in Keser, which is the infinite. Got it? Okay.
One question.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at the masculine and it's going to Tiferes. Then Tiferes reconnects back to Yesod, but it's not showing the masculine connecting to.
The masculine collection shows how it's connected to the neshamas of men.
Right, and it looks like it's connected at the level of Tiferes.
No, there's a line there just indicating that it's all 6.
Oh, okay, got it.
I mean,
Of
course, this would be a discussion in itself and a number of classes to explain the difference between the source of Malchus and the source of Zoh. But just to reconcile what appears to be like a contradiction, that here we learn that the source of women's neshama is Malchus, which is lower, and the source of men is from Zoh, which is higher. And in other places it says that neshamas of women come from a higher source than the neshama of men. So the answer is the source of women is lower, the source of men is higher, but the source of the source, women's source of source is higher, and the men is lower. Malchus and Zol. Okay, so now let's start the new mimer today. So this new mimer, as it says on the cover, this morning, this new mimer is, yeah, you'll take this surely. The new mimer is called Achrei Avayla Kechem Tilechem. I just want to give you a little bit of a history where this is. This is from the Kuti Torah. So in general, we know that Tanya is like the most basic book of Hasidus, written by the Alter Rebbe. After Tanya, there's two other books that are in sort of that category. And that one of them, the Kuti Torah, this is the Kuti Torah, and this one is Torah Or. So even though these are two separate books with two different titles, but really it's one book, and it's just volume 1 and volume 2. So why is the name changed? So the history behind it is that initially, the Tzemach Tzedek, who was the third Rebbe of Chabad, and the grandson of the Alter Rebbe, for the first time was going to publish, this was the first time it would happen, publish Maimorim from the Alter Rebbe. So he chose 2,000 Maimorim that he had, 2,000, and from the 2,000 he would choose Maimorim that are related to Parshas Breshis and those Parshas Noah, according to the Parsha of the week, explaining each Parsha from a Hasidic perspective. And he finished this volume called the Torah Or, and this covers the book of Breshis and the book of Shmos. That was done. Then, at that time, there was a big war going on, spiritual war, that there was a movement which was called the Enlightenment movement, and these were the Jews who unfortunately introduced new ideas in Judaism. This was the beginning of the Reform movement. At that time, they weren't so reformed like today. At that time, they were people who still kept Torah, kept mitzvahs, but they had very distorted ideas about belief in Hashem, some things they did do, some things they didn't do. So that was the beginning. In fact, the founder of the Reform movement, his name was Moses Mendelssohn, he used to daven 3 times a day, put on tefillin. But it was a deviation from Torah, and his children, all his children, converted to Christianity eventually. So they knew that the books of Hasidus that are being published is giving people a lot of strength, and therefore it's fighting their movement. So what they did was they tried to close down the publishing house that publishes Torah books in general, and specifically Hasidic books. How do you close it down? The good old-fashioned way, which is to fabricate some sort of false accusation and close them down. And that's what they did. So the publishing house that published this was closed down. And for the next 10 years, he couldn't print the second volume. 10 years later, whatever things were worked out, and the publishing house was open again, and then he reprinted it. The reason we don't know, but Tzemach Tzedek at that time printed the second volume, but changed the name. So really, these two are volume 1 and volume 2. This covers Bereshis and Shmos, and this book covers Vayikra, Bamidbar, Dvarim, and one more book, the book of Shir Shir, all according to Chassidus. And the Tanya is referred to as the Torah Shebeksav, like just like in Torah in general, you have the Chumash, which is the written Torah, and all the books of the prophets, the written Torah. Everything is based on that. And then you have Gemara, which is the Oral Torah. And then there's hundreds and thousands of books of Torah that have been published over the generations from all the great Torah sages. But the most basic source of the oral Torah is Gemara, Mishnah and Gemara. So too, this is considered, Tanya is like the written Torah in Chassidus, and this is sort of the oral, everything is based on this. All the Maimarim, that all the Rebbes in later generations said, it's usually based on things that are written here and here about what the Parsha really means according to Chassidus. So this is a mimer coming out of this sefer, which is called the Kuti Torah. That's why on top here it says the Kuti Torah. The name of the mimer is Achrei Havaya Lekechem Telechu. And we will start now. Also, I'm sorry, one more thing I want to give out is the workbook we're going to be working with. Questions and answers and terms as we go along. Ariel, if you don't mind. Thank you. Thank you. The one there that I put numbers down, and anyone have that one? Lucky ones? Have numbers next to it. When you look at the first page. No? Oh, here it is. Okay. The mimer that we're going to learn is actually a very long mimer. And we're only going to learn a certain segment of the mimer. And the mimer basically focuses on what is the spiritual significance of an asayim, of a test, when Hashem tests us. What is the purpose? Why Hashem gives us challenges? And first, let's learn. In the back here, you have the pages, as usual. All the records are back here. So look at page 9. So we'll see the origin of the whole subject. It's a Chumash Devarim. And it begins with this pasuk. If a prophet arises among you, which means a person comes along. I'm looking here in the booklet, page 9. Person comes along and he claims that he's a Navi, and also he gives you certain signs, he performs miracles. No? Yeah. Yafa, you don't have it? Page 9.
Next to 372.
So this person is going to perform miracles, then turn the page. Now this person who performs the miracles will come along to you and say, come, let's go. Let's worship other gods. Let's worship, God forbid, Avodah Zarah. Gods that you did not know, and let's serve them. Don't listen to the words of that prophet or that dreamer. I guess it means a person who says he has things revealed to him in a dream, and he already performed miracles to prove that he's authentic. But if he says to you, go and worship idols, you know that don't follow him. And why is it happening? Which means, why is Hashem allowing him to do this? Hashem is testing you to know, do you really love God with all your heart and all your soul? So don't go after this person. Don't give him any credibility. But you should go after, you should follow Hashem. And Hashem is the one who you should fear. Hashem is the one that you should follow his commandments. And in Hashem's voice you should listen. And Hashem is the one who you should serve. And Hashem is the one that you should attach yourself. So the mimer actually goes into explaining each one of these words. What's the first one? Follow Hashem. The second one, fear him. Third one, observe his commandments. The fourth one, listen to his voice. Each one represents something else. So it's actually a long mimer. But we're going to explain the first part, which is after Hashem, your God, you should go, you should follow. This Maimon we don't really have an English translation, at least I don't know about it. So we're going to do work from here. Let's go back to the first page where the Maimon begins. You should follow Hashem, you should fear him, etc. Horak HaKosov, the Pasuk lists Shisha Dvarim, 6 things, Ba'avedas Hashem, in serving Hashem. One is Telechu, follow. One is Tira'u, fear. One is to Shmeiru, observe. One is a B'kaila to Shmo, listen to his voice. V'aises Havedu, him you should serve. V'aises Baka, you should attach yourself to him. What is written before these words? It says, Kiminasa Hashem Elokechem Eschem. Hashem will test you, Lodas, to know. Ulahavin, we need to understand, Ma'u Kiminasa. What is the opinion of a test? So the word that we use, that we know, is the word Nisayon. Hashem is, something happens which is difficult, challenging, we say it's an Nisayon. So for example, if we look at here in the book on page 12, this is from davening in the morning, but it's really a pasuk in Chumash. It says, "Vayeh Dvar Mo'ela, Lakim Nisa Savram." This is the story of the Akedah. Nisa. The word Nisa is like the word Manasseh. Hashem tested Abraham. Or let's look at another page, page 14. This is from Pirkei Avos, where it says, Asara Nisyonis. There were 10 tests. Nisnasa Abraham Avinu, that Abraham Avinu was tested. V'amad b'kulam, and he stood up to all the 10 tests. So we see from this, the word Nisayon means test, which we refer to as a challenge. In fact, that's consistent with what it says in Chassidus. But what he's asking is, what's the purpose of a test? It doesn't say what the question is, but the question is obvious. If I want to know if another person is loyal, if another person is really, truly, deeply connected, there's no way I could know what's going on in his heart. So the only way I know is that if I put him to a test. Something happens, and I see how they act. If they're really loyal, then go all the way. If not, then they won't go out of their way. But Hashem knows and sees what's in my mind and my heart. He knows what's going on in the deepest depth of my heart, in fact, even more than I know. So what does he need a test for? What's the purpose of the test? He knows before the test whether I can stand up to the test or not. So there's no purpose in the test. So that's the general question, why a test? And of course, a lot of Mefarshim, a lot of other commentators on Torah ask the same question. There are different answers given. And here we're going to learn the answer which is given in Chassidus. The neshama, before it descended down to this world, it was standing in a higher spiritual plane, in the spiritual world. As it's written, there's a pasuk where it says Chai Havaya. Here you can see this pasuk on page 15, where he's making an oath. He's swearing, and he's saying, "I swear in the name of Hashem, Asher Amarati Lefanav, this Hashem that I stood before him." What does it mean I stood before him? In past tense. So this is alluding to the fact that before the neshama comes down, the neshama is in Shemayim, in heaven. The body is a new creation. The body is something which is created through the parents. But the neshama was always there, and the neshama was standing and serving Hashem. And when the time comes, the neshama goes down and enters the body. But the neshama was there. The Sham, and up there in the spiritual realm, Godliness was totally revealed to the soul. That's a spiritual world. There's nothing there that's not spiritual. So therefore, the neshama was surrounded only by one thing, spirituality. And all the spirituality is totally revealed. And after that, Yorda b'seisa madreges, the neshama descends in levels. Levels that one level is more hidden than the next level. And it comes down to this physical world, this low world, lies behest upon him, that everything is Hashem's face is hidden. I'm very distant from Hashem. Every morning in davening, here on page 16, which is just from the Siddur, but every morning in davening, we start off the day by saying Elokai, which means my God. HaNeshama Shenasatabi, the soul which you gave me, Tahari, it's pure. Then we say you created it, you formed it, and you breathed it. So Chassidus, it explains that this is describing the descent. Barasa, the Hebrew word barasa, comes from the word bria. The neshama goes down to the world of bria. Yatzarta, you formed it, it alludes to the world of Yetzira. Then from there, the neshama goes down to the world of Yetzira. Then when it says, you blew it into me, that's in this physical world. Where it says in the Chumash that Hashem blew the soul into man. And then Hashem, Meshamar v'kibri, you preserve the neshama in me. So when the neshama comes down into the guf, it's a huge transition. Up there, godliness is revealed in a way that there's nothing blocking. It sees only godliness. When it comes down here, it's called Hester Panim. That means that everything is hidden and we feel distant from Hashem. So the question is, why would Hashem do that? Take a neshama who's living a life of bliss all around godliness and send him into a place which for neshama is total darkness and everything is hidden. So the ultimate purpose of this descent is b'shvil hanisyonos. The whole purpose of the neshama is to come down to this world and go through the process of a nisayon, of a test. Shaboin la'adam. What is the definition of a test? Shemehester panim, anything that hides Hashem's presence, anything that seems to imply Hashem is not here, Hashem is not in it, that's in the sign. Istalkus achayus, when you see an absence of God's vitality. For example, Meniyas Brias Haguf, if the body is not healthy. Body is not healthy means Hashem is not making the person healthy, which basically means that godliness is concealed. You don't see Hashem giving good life to this person. Or Meniyas Mammon, or a person who's having financial difficulties. Again, Hashem is the one that provides, and here he's not providing. So it's as if he's not there. But the purpose is Hashem. The purpose is just that, to hide and to conceal Hashem's light. There are all sorts of things that are blocking and preventing me from seeing godliness, some from the inside, some from the outside. What does it mean, the inside, the outside? Some things are internal, my own feelings, my own thoughts, that they block me and they sort of don't allow me to feel Hashem's presence properly, have proper belief in Hashem and recognize Hashem. And there are things from the outside, like he says before, there's, God forbid, health problems, or there's financial problems, or there's a government that's trying to block me from learning Torah, or there's a person who's trying to convince me not to believe in Hashem. All these things are coming from the outside. So whether it's from the outside or from the inside, but their purpose is all the same. It's to block my ability to see Hashem and to feel Hashem. And one of the things where we see Hashem's presence so hidden is Derech Rishoyim Tzleicha. We see that the ways of the wicked is with success. In other words, this question, you probably heard the expression, why do good things happen to bad people? Why do bad things happen to good people? But it's actually a pasuk. If you look here on page 18, it's a pasuk in Job. where it says, Madua, why? Derech Hashem Tzleicha. Why do we see that the ways of the wicked prosper? A person that's a wicked person, clearly doing things against Hashem, and yet he's being very successful, he has a lot of money, or he has a lot of power. So that sort of hides Hashem's presence more than anything else. Because if Hashem is running the world, it would make sense that someone who goes against Hashem shouldn't have all these blessings. And yet they seem to be prospering and seem to be successful. Yeah.
When you say it blocks our awareness of Hashem, the others, you mean you self or our neshama it's blocking?
Of course, it means human, which means the neshama now manifests through the body. So what I feel is what my neshama is feeling. Yes, there is a part of my neshama that knows the truth.
But then the neshama itself, it's the knowledge.
But the part of the neshama that becomes sort of the conscious me is confused and is being affected by this. The person with the miracles and the person with the different signs comes and says, let's go worship idols. Klaimer, what does it mean? Shisham Gilui Ha'ez Ba'mefes. That in this place, the place of impurity and the place of the wicked or the impure forces, we see miracles, or we see Ois, meaning that's on top of the page, Hagboas Karnam V'Hagdola V'Ribi Achayis. We see that they're able to sort of lift their banners, and they have an abundance of vitality, meaning they have a lot of people, they have a lot of power, they have a lot of money. And that's why they say, Yodeinu Rama. Our hands, we are superior. Look. Magbim Kaneshakinam. Or there's another verse that says, they rise like an eagle. An eagle is always used as an example because the eagle rises and flies higher than all other birds. So they rise like an eagle, which means that they're successful, like we see, evil people, and they've got themselves to a certain place where they're getting honor, or they have a lot of money, or they have a lot of power. And more than anything else, that's what makes a person question and doubt if Hashem is really here. Look what's happening. How could this happen? Next paragraph. A person needs tremendous extra strength to stand up to this test. So imagine a person has a business and his friend has a business, and they both sort of know each other and they're observing what's going on. This person closes his store on Shabbos, does everything right, and this person keeps his store open on Shabbos, on Shoshana, Yom Kippur, also a Jew, and the other person is having tremendous success, and his business is very rocky and shaky. How could that be? I'm doing what Hashem wants. I'm giving tzedakah. I'm keeping Shabbos and Yom Tov, and my business is rocky. He's going against Hashem, and his business is successful. So you need tremendous strength not to let this affect my emunah. And that's the purpose of this test. The purpose of the test is not Chas V'Shalom to make life difficult for me, but the purpose is that I should overcome this challenge. I should be strong, and by doing that, so he's saying that the purpose of the test is that Hashem wants to bring me and give me the opportunity to reach and rise to a higher level of spirituality. So he puts this test in front of me, and by standing in front of me and I'm strong and I overcome it, not only I overcome it and okay, it didn't affect me, but by overcoming, I actually rise to a much higher spiritual level than I would have been before. In fact, there's no way of reaching this highest spiritual level without going through that. And what is this highest spiritual level? That's in the word das, to have das. So here this is first of all the answer to the original question. If you look back at the pasuk, it says Kiminasa Hashem Elokechem Esem. God is testing you, lo das, to know to know what? To know where you stand. And the question is, Hashem doesn't need a test to know where I stand. But now we're explaining that the word das doesn't mean for Hashem to know. It's for me to reach a higher level of das, of knowing and comprehending and absorbing godliness. And that's the purpose. Of course, Hashem knows without a test, but he wants me to reach a certain higher level of spirit. So the neshama, as high as it is, it's limited in a certain way by coming down to this world and being confronted with all these challenges and all these things that conceal godliness, because the neshama never had that experience up there, and the neshama has to overcome that. The neshama reaches a much higher level, and after 120 years, when the neshama goes back to Shemayim, it's no longer in the same place where it was when it came down, and it's in a much higher place because it overcame all these tests. And the question is, what is das? What is so unique about the word das? It goes on to say the following: Shadas nimshik mebchinas riyah. Das is something that we gain through riyah, through vision. Kediksiv, like it says, Ata haresa ladas. This is the pasuk that you might have heard many times on Simchas Torah, Shmini Atzeres. When we say Ata haresa ladas, that's the first pasuk in those psukim that we read before the Hakafos. So first, let's see where the source is. It's page 21. It's actually a pasuk in Chumash. Page 21 and page 21a. Ata haresa ladas. There's different ways of interpreting the words, but it means you have been shown. Hashem is saying to the Jewish people, I showed you ladas, that you should know ki Hashem hu Elokim, that Hashem is God. Ein oid mavad, there is no one else besides him. And this pasuk we read every Shabbos before we take the Torah out. We say it, as you see on page 22. And on Simchas Torah, as you see on page 23, before we do the Hakafos, we read this pasuk again. And what is the content of these words? Ata haresa ladas, I have shown you to know. So the Alter Rebbe is explaining that means there's a certain level of perceiving godliness, which is called das, and that is something which comes through seeing. So there's knowing something without seeing it, and there's knowing something by seeing it visually. When you see something visually, it has a different kind of an impact. It sort of becomes one with the person in a different way to just understanding or hearing. You can't compare it to how it is through vision. First of all, let's understand this begashmias. We know that when you see something, it stays with you much longer. In other words, you can go back now, usually most people, and think back 20 years of a place where you were, and you can picture exactly where the staircase was, where the windows were in that room, what it looked like, and so on. And when you hear something, it was only yesterday. What did he say? What did he say? How did he explain it? Well, which thing did he say first? Which thing did he say second? When you see something, it sort of penetrates deeper within us, and it stays with us longer. I guess that's the reason why in marketing and advertisement, they put so much emphasis on visual things, all sorts of visual things, because they feel that has a bigger impact on a person, and it goes deeper in. So this is the same as with Hashem. that when the Eden were, let's say, in the desert and they saw the miracles and Hashem spoke to them by Har Sinai, it was something which they witnessed themselves, they saw it, and therefore it had a different impact on them. So even when we're not talking about seeing physically, understanding Hashem, there's a level of an understanding that's compared more to audio, and there's a level that's understanding that's compared more to visual. And he brings an example, there's a pasuk. There's a pasuk which says, from my flesh I see Hashem. This pasuk is here on page 24. I wonder if that's how they translate it in the literal translation. Let me see. They write, I see the judgment of Hashem from my flesh. But it's still not very different. The words are, Omipsari, from my flesh, Echze Eloka, I see God. Echze is another word for seeing. I think it's more Aramaic than it is Hebrew. Hainu, that means, just like a person knows his soul. It doesn't, I can't say I see my neshama. If you look in the mirror, usually you don't see your neshama. You see your nose, you see your face, you see your body, but not your neshama. But nevertheless, a person is aware of his neshama as if it's something that he would see. The neshama gives life to the guf. And without the neshama, ain't the guf kiyum v'chayis. The guf cannot be sustained. In other words, just like if you would ask somebody, the neshama is giving life to your guf, is that something which you have a muna, or it's like sort of equivalent to seeing it? I feel it. I feel that the neshama is giving me life. That's how one could have an understanding of Hashem and a perception of Hashem's presence in this world, that it's clear to him as if it's something which he sees. And naturally, when that happens, it brings a person to a much higher level in serving Hashem. But what he's going to explain now is that how does one reach that level of having, that's called das. So in order to understand this a little bit better, understanding what is das, you know that the intellect is divided into three parts, Chokhmah, Bina, and Das. So I'm sure you learned this in different classes, but I'd like to hear, how do you understand, like, what exactly is, how's Das different than Chokhmah and Bina? Chokhmah means to understand, Bina means to understand, and Das means to understand. In English, I think they say Chokhmah is wisdom, Bina is understanding, and Das is knowledge. Good morning. What is the difference between wisdom, understanding, and knowledge? It's all the same. Yeah.
Chachma is that initial spark, like the initial idea of it. Being is more integrated versus Das is like fully like immersed with you. Like it's like become part of your like intellect. I don't know how to explain it. Like it's part of you now. It's no longer just like an abstract idea. Like you've learned how to integrate it.
And Bina?
Bina is like the process of getting to Das. It's
But if I understand it, then it's the same thing.
understanding like how something works is different than being able to like implement it in
Implementing is not that. Implementing is doing something about it.
But do you first
live
have
with
to
it.
already have it? You know what I mean?
I know what I mean.
Sorry, I wasn't thinking.
To me, it's the state of it becomes accessible to be implemented. As opposed to just having a conceptual understanding, now it's there, like on the shelf for us, ready for us to implement it.
Right. Okay. So we'll leave over here and we'll explain this tomorrow, Mitzvah Shem. We'll go into more what Das is, and then we'll understand this. I mean, it's a very important thing, right? Just for the minor in general, to understand what Das is all about. Okay. To be continued. Yeah.
Like the binder came apart. I wasn't sure what to do.
We'll take another one. Tomorrow, well, I'll bring this downstairs. Thank you.
Oh,
Thank you.
That's okay. I should have texted,
Thank you.
but it's
Yes, he was here.
Yeah.
Robin
We all see your skirt, by the way.
Thank you.
Rabbi Majeski.
No,
I wanted to clarify, so in the context of the wine first part is that that is like in the role. Higher perception. Like hearing that like seeing.
It's a perception of Hashem that's so clear and so powerful, like visual, as if I'm experiencing it visually. Even though it's in the mind.
Right.
So,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Finding ways.
Look at that.
Not glass, Vina, it's dust, like, both of them to have that.
oh, of course, you do. Yes.
It's like, I don't know which one is the man and which one is the woman, that together. Like,
Chokhmah is masculine, Bina is feminine,
It's.
and then comes down. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Rabbi Majeski, would you be able to meet with sometime this week?
Can't make this time now because I'm learning to teach for the class.
Okay.
Maybe lunchtime, we'll make this time.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Ariel, to renew our,
Oh,
I know, he has to.
I'll come bother you at lunch.
It's tasty and then.
Oh, I'm so happy.
Very good. You can see somebody looking at you, but if you tell them, right, you can do it. It's good. It takes.
Why did you-
Yeah, takes a skill on.